You cannot save human beings by works when you know what sin means to them more than they know themselves. You guys don't know how much sin has crippled you. God knows. You see, human beings think they have fallen this much. God knows they have fallen like without a limit. When sin came into our bodies, it dug a pit in us that is bottomless. Our fall from grace has no limit. Actually, the only thing that stopped us falling was being held by God. No, you didn't understand what I said. We fell so much that the only thing that stopped us from continuing the fall was a pick up by God. Take that away, we continue falling. So we stopped falling because God stopped us. Amen. So the first act of salvation was to stop the fall. Before he starts to pull us up. Now, when people tell me that because Jesus died on the cross, yes, we have victory over sin. But what type of victory is the question? And what type of sin? Paul, who told you the first man who understood the works of the cross is dead. You know what killed him? Sin. The same sin we have victory over. Ellen White is dead. Why? Sin. The Apostle Paul and the Apostle Peter is dead. Why? Sin. Martin Luther gone. Calvin gone. Why? Sin. So what did the cross do? You've got to understand what the cross did and what it did not do. There is what the cross did and what it did not do. We confuse those two, and that's where is the problem. People start boasting when they should have. They are boasting over things they scarcely understand. I have no problem with anybody who says they keep the law, if you know what keeping the law is. I agree there must be ethics. We must be good people because that's the only way of living in a broken world. There's no two choices about that. I have daughters, that's why, and a wife, that's why I don't agree with adultery. Because if there is one to be affected, it is me. It has nothing to do with salvation. Anybody who has property cannot agree that there should be theft. And that's all of us. Do you understand what I'm saying? You tell me one person here who agrees that there should be theft. Nobody. You know why? Because everybody on this planet has property. So if we start preaching that there will be theft, we are all going to lose. We all have life. That's why I don't agree that there should be killing. These are not matters of salvation. It is just trying to find a way of continuing to sustain life here. Period. But when we come to salvation, that's another matter. There are two issues here. How to sustain life in a disorganized environment and how to go to heaven. Don't mix the two. There are two things here. How to sustain life in a very disorganized environment. That's one subject. And it is another. How do we get life eternal? And I'll tell you honestly, I think there must be a way and an organized way of living in a community where people by very nature are disorganized. By very nature, organization is not part of who we are. Unfortunately. Left alone, we are by default disorganized. That's why to some extent, you have to remind many men to have a shower. If they wish, if they could, they would avoid. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you'd rather go to bed than shower? Oftentimes. Yeah, at least you are consistently honest. This is the second time. That's often. Nobody wants to take an injection even when you know it's the one thing you need. That's who we are. The things we need, we don't like. And God knows it. So when He tells you, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do this, it's got nothing to do with taking you to heaven. It's got to make sure that you don't finish up yourself. Sin in us is such that we have the ability, if left unattended, to finish ourselves. If left unattended, we have the ability to finish ourselves. I keep telling people, when God says do not commit adultery, it's not because God has a wife and he's worried that in the process you might take his. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Yes. When the Bible advises you against drinking, it's not because God has a liver that when you drink his will be affected. God is just saying, look, I created a liver in you and I know how it works. The best way for you to manage it is avoid the foreign substance. Now it is you to tell God that the doctors have said that a little wine is good. But you see, doctors have never made a liver. Never have and never will. You either listen to the liver manufacturer or those that are just finding out what the liver is. Now let me tell you, medical science is yet to understand the liver.
Yes. Yes.
The doctor will tell you. Yes. Dr. Myron. There are things about the liver these guys are yet to know. They've never made it. Poor guys, they just have to look at it and do research, and every time they continue to look, PhDs are being wrote on the liver every day until Jesus Christ comes back. New things will be discovered about the liver. Fact. Now God who made it knows all of it. So who do you listen to? Those finding out or the maker? You make your choice. This is why I listen to God. Because God is not researching. He knows. I actually call him Professor God. He knows. If God were to write a book, there will be no bibliography. He would just say, no. Those of you who have written papers, you know what I'm saying. If God were to write an academic paper, in the footnotes there will be one statement, God, and at the end, God, and there's no supervisor. The supervisor is still God. Now that's the guy I listen to. So in matters of salvation, he tells you, I have saved you. You have two options. Listen to your pastor or listen to him. And someday, over 2,000 years ago, he said a very serious statement. It is finished.
Amen.
Now you ever listen to your doctrines, or that statement. And when he made it, he wasn't bluffing. He wasn't joking. Your salvation had been finished. Some guy stood here and preached about billiards and reality. Those of you who were around might remember. But let me talk about absolutes and relatives. My salvation is finished in terms of absolutes. Now let me go back to what I said last week. That when God does something, it means there was never a better way to do it. You were saved by grace, and that was the best way it could be done. Number two, God cannot do anything incomplete. Okay? That's why when I discuss, when we get into, people ask me so many questions about jewelry and blah blah blah, and I tell them, you know, if I decided to put a ring here, I may decide to feel that